Hello, and welcome to the Closer's Playbook, a podcast about selling your services as a freelancer. My name is Tyler Poole. I'm here with my co-host, Pete Beber.
How you doing, Tyler?
Good, man. How are you doing this week?
Doing well.
Good. Just got back from the gym?
Yeah.
Nice. So on this week, we are talking about building expectations with your clients or your potential clients. This is something that we think you do both at the very start during the selling process, and then it continues on to the first month or so of working with a client. Yeah. So, Pete, what are some of the expectations that you try to set like right away while you're selling your services before they've even agreed to anything?
Yeah. Well, I think, to your point there, a lot of times we don't notice this until we're already working. Like everything's done. We start working with the client. We're maybe a few weeks in, and then they start to have these expectations. And you're like, where did that come from? Right. Hey, like you're not my only client a lot of times. Right.
Right.
So I think, you can set that right up front. So in how you schedule your first, we've talked about discovery before, how you set that first meeting or the first few meetings when you're going when you're trying to understand what the client is looking for you to accomplish, when you're working towards building your proposal and then presenting that proposal. It's not saying like, hey, I'm available these 50 times this week.
Right.
It's saying, hey, here's 1 or 2 times this week that I'm available. Yep. Right. And, then it's, if I get this proposal to you, maybe you're talking on a Monday and you say, hey, I should be able to have this proposal to you by Wednesday afternoon. Would you be free at 1:00 for us to review it? If I have any questions that come up, I'll reach out. And then stuff like that, because now you're saying you're controlling the time, but you're being thoughtful about their time at the same time.
Do you ever schedule something in your proposals where, this question's twofold. As an hourly employee, I think it's really important that in your proposal, you put the expectations for not only the hours you'll work a week, but also the pay. But if I do a lot of retainer work where I'm like, X number of dollars per month.
Sure.
Do you put something in your proposal that talks about what that $1,000 is going to, that $1,000 a month or $2,000 or whatever is going to get them a month? Do you how do you set those expectations? As to the work to be delivered? Absolutely.
So if you haven't listened to our episode on proposals, it's escaping me which number, but we can put it in the notes. When you're presenting your proposal, you want to outline, here's the expectations for the work. So this is what we're looking to accomplish. This is what it's going to cost to accomplish X. Mm-hmm. That way, if they come back to you and say, hey, I really need this done, you can say, okay, we talked about change orders in another one where you can say, okay, that's outside of the scope of what we talked about. So there's a couple ways you could address it. You could say, this is going to take me X amount of time. This is outside of the scope of what we talked about. And if maybe it's a monthly retainer, you could say something.
And now that's out after you've already signed the client, right?
Yeah. So this is after. That's what you were referring to.
No, sorry. I was talking about still the proposal.
So in the proposal, you want to outline, here's the work to be done, the expectations of the work, maybe SLAs, which is like a service level agreement. So it might be, I'll respond to you within 4 hours or 24 hours, at least acknowledging your request. And then I'll have, details within this amount of time. Okay. So you're saying, here's my response time, right in the proposal, so that their expectations are set right up front. If then after you get into it, customers are still going to ask you for more.
Sure.
Right.
How detailed are you going in on that proposal section, on that expectation section?
I think it's going to depend on the type of the work that you do. Okay. So I think, freelance covers a lot of different topics, and it depends, I think, on the type of work that you're going to do. So
the reason I ask is I tune this very much so dependent on the client, and I completely agree with you in the fact that a client that's paying me $5,000 a month is getting a heck of a lot quicker responses, a lot more of my time than one who's paying me $500 to $1,000.
And you can build that into your proposal, right? So you could say, hey, at this price, here is my response time, right? Like we refer to a lot as service level agreement, saying you can expect like there's big like I've worked with, say, Microsoft, right, where I'm selling Microsoft services, licensing, things like that, right? Their software. That's been a big part of my background, and they have support.
That website.
Yeah, and they have support that they provide, and there's also third parties that provide support. So they'll say, hey, for this level of support, where you'll get, it's for your critical infrastructure, we'll respond within 1 hour or X number of minutes, even potentially, and here's how many hours you get per month of time dedicated to it. It could be like a premier support agreement, which is actually a name of a Microsoft type of support.
This sounds like it might be going overboard. Initially, this is what my thought was. But then actually today I had a problem on one of my sites. I was working with one of my web hosts, and they have instant chat tech support. And knowing that is there was one of the big selling points to this particular service that I'm using. And, I could have gone with, there's, I don't know, 1 million web hosts out there. This one got my business because they had that. Right. And it was part of their, granted, this is off a sales page that I learned about it and whatever. It wasn't in a proposal. But I chose them because this response time was a feature of their service.
They outline the expectations for you based on the service that you're going to purchase.
Yep.
And that's really what the proposal would do here is say, hey, here's, if you're working on critical stuff, then you might want to build in a higher cost for faster response times.
Yep.
Right? If you're solo, you might not want to put in 30-minute response time because you're going to have to drop whatever you're doing. And if you have enough of those clients where you're like 30-minute response time, then what happens if two people...
Right. Then you better have help support in the Philippines.
Exactly. So outline that in there. That could even be a separation for your proposal of saying like, hey, do you what level of support do you expect?
Right.
Because
that's
then
a great discovery question. Mm-hmm. Another episode.
Yep. So what level of support do you expect? Yeah. Because here's what I can give you at different price levels, right? If you're good with next day response, we can shave some dollars off of this, right? You can take that into account in your budget. But when you outline that,
I would even, for most freelancers, I would go the opposite way and say, set your response time maybe 24 hours, 48 hours, something like that. And then, and add it in as I can make sure that I get back to you within 8 hours, or a business day. If we want to bump up this to my next tier or,
you like you were saying earlier, I don't remember if it was before we hit record or not, okay. But you set the bar, a little bit lower than what you can accomplish sometimes, because then you're delivering even faster. But you want to be careful with that. You don't want to, hey, I've got a 24-hour response time and you're responding in 30 minutes all the time, because that's the new expectation. So you can set that response time expectation. You can set the, type of work expectation, the number of hours per week, per month. Even on a retainer, you might say, this is good for X number of hours of work per month.
Or up to.
Yeah, up to.
Approximately. I use approximately a lot because I'll say, one of my big services was backlinks. And so I'll say, this is, in this plan, I'm shooting for approximately 10 backlinks a month, or approximately 20 hours worth of dedicated backlink building. You can spin it each way. And that's something that I do. I'll spin it depending on what they've already told me they wanted. A client who's really focused on hours, I'm going to spin it to the hours one. A client who is really focused on the number of backlinks, I'm going to spin it to the number of backlinks. But approximately, I use approximately 1,000 times a day.
The more you can define it, though, the tighter the expectation is. And when you set that expectation, so I hate to be the guy who's like, hey, take a look at our contract, right? But sometimes that can be really helpful to say, hey, I understand your expectations changed based on what we talked about. If you want me to now respond within 8 or 12 hours, and we talked about 24 to 48, it's going to cost more.
Right.
So we can put a change in, and here's what the price is for that level of response.
Well, and now we're jumping ahead to once you've started working at the clients, but
I think that's a lot of times when this comes out.
Yeah,
is in the beginning everyone's happy, everyone's excited, and they're like, hey, we got a new project together, this person's going to do a great job for me, and then stuff comes up in their life and their work, and they're going, I need something now, I need this thing popped up.
So let's go back and look at what other expectations do you like to outline in your proposal?
I think response time is a big one. Yeah. Which we've kind of covered. Sure. The amount or level of work that you're going to do. So hours, backlinks in your case, number of articles, number of words, editing time. I think you said for or edits for photo, video. Right. I think those are the major ones. I might not be thinking of because there's so many different topics that we could cover. But think about the things that, if you've already been, let's say this isn't your first time, you've got more than one client. You've been on a couple sales calls.
Mm-hmm. You know what questions you're getting.
Yeah. And maybe you've had some customers who you're like, God, this customer is really a pain, Right. What makes them a pain? What are the things that bug you about it? Now take those, write those down, and go, how can I put in the next contract that I do, so that we address this up front? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times you just have to have the conversation right up front. Definitely put it in the contract, put it in your proposal, so that you can refer back to it, but you got to cover it with them. And, people want certainty. So they want to know, if you don't outline, here's what my response time is, here's the amount of work that I'm going to do, here's what you can expect from me, then they'll get anxious. Mm-hmm. And then they don't know what to expect. And they're gonna put in their mind what it should be. And that's their idea. Mm-hmm. So you need to, if you want to mitigate some of the risks of client, crazy expectations from a client, mm-hmm. address it right up front.
Good. Yeah. So let's, I think that's good for while you're selling. Yeah. We talked a little bit, and maybe this is something that is more something that I do, but we talked a little bit before we hit record about what you do in that first month to establish expectations or to build on them if you've set them well in the sales process. Yeah,
I think make sure that you are hitting those expectations. Yep. First and foremost, right? If you said 24-hour response time, do not respond in 25 hours. Right. Because you just blew the expectation that you set with the customer that you're charging them for. And that could, take the expectation that you've written in there to make sure that you're hitting those expectations. Yep. So that goes back to the proposal a bit. Make sure what you're putting in as expectations mm-hmm. is something you can achieve.
So, and I I don't talk about reporting a lot in most of my proposals, but I like to send out an initial report, and then at the end of the first month, especially if we're talking SEO services, everything more or less is done monthly. So that first initial report, I'll send them some reports that I didn't even talk about in the proposal. Mm-hmm. And I'll, hopefully they're white labeled. Hopefully they're nice reports. Maybe if you're just starting out, maybe it's an Excel document that tracks whatever rankings, let's say. But send them something and then say, I know we didn't talk about this, but you'll be getting this monthly. And that right there, I like to do that in the first week. Because then you've already, yes, you're going to send them this report every month. You're going to send them something every month, I would hope.
I would even say my expectation of working with you is that we are going to make this time every month or whatever for your business. If it's weekly, biweekly, monthly, we are going to have a 30-minute, a 60-minute meeting to discuss the work that's been done. Make sure that what we're working on is still the expectation. of what we're going to do the next month. So I don't like to say check-ins, but they're saying you get an opportunity here to say, hey, remember these were the goals that we set out for over the past month, or from the time of the proposal. And then here's what we've accomplished towards those goals. So we're on target or we're not on target, and what I'm going to do to get us back on target, or what I need from you, because sometimes you're waiting on the client for things.
Sure.
To get us back on target. That way you're having these regular meetings, and if you set that expectation from the start, you're also telling them it's not just me here. This is a working relationship. And so then you're also at the same time making sure you're staying in front of the customer and that you continue to stay on track. So we talked a little bit about some of this in the business reviews episode. Yeah. A lot of times I'm doing quarterly or annually or biannual business reviews, but that doesn't mean that in between I'm not checking in with these customers around, are we accomplishing what we set out to accomplish? Because the business reviews tend to include more people depending on the type of business that you're in. But you could do a business review monthly. I think that's a good expectation to set from the beginning, and it keeps you front and center, and it makes sure you're still working towards.
Yeah, whether next. You need to have some sort of. I think you need to have some sort of face-to-face time once a month. Yeah. But whatever that is for you, whether it's reporting or face-to-face, that is a great expectation to establish month one.
I missed something in there. Thinking about expectations of the client is when you'll get paid.
That's we both missed that one.
That's a pretty really critical one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here are the things that you are committing to, but hey, Mr. and Miss Client, this is when you'll cut payment, and maybe you give them, hey, if I haven't received payment within 1 week of this, then work stops until payment is made.
Yeah, think of your mortgage, think of your rent, think of your credit card bill, whatever. You have expectation dates on every single one of those, and they make sure you know when they are. Right. So why would you treat your business any different?
Right, and you can even say, hey, if it goes to 2 weeks, like we'll discuss best effort to pay, right? But if you go 2 weeks or whatever, like you got to have a cutoff, because you got to go doing work for free. You might as well go look for another client.
It's interesting you say that, because actually, I think it was last month, I had this problem with one of my clients. I'd been working with them for, 9-10 months, something like that. So quite a while, and I did not expect to have any problems, but we're sitting on the 7th of the month, and I hadn't received my payment yet. And I sent it out, last week of the prior month. And we happened to have a business review scheduled. We happened to have a call. And so we were on the phone, and I'm like, hey, one more thing before I go. I haven't received payment on the invoice yet. He's like, I haven't seen an invoice yet. And so, yeah, so very interesting. But that expectation was never talked about. Like, that client pays, while they pay every month, it's within a couple days. Yeah. And so I never sent that. When we started working together, I never said it. And so
a lot of people are afraid to talk about money. Yeah. But that was a case where if you didn't bring it up, he's like, wait, what are you talking about?
Right.
And so you can set that expectation too. You'll receive an invoice by this date, and payment is due within this number of days. Yep. Right. Or you could, depending, like you talked about retainer, hey, it's a monthly charge. It's due but you might still send something.
Yeah, that's a real. I send something. I work almost exclusively on retainer, and I send something every month regardless.
They need it for their books, for their accounting, and look, if a bill doesn't come in, what are you going to pay?
Right. And honestly, there are a lot of very cheap, very professional looking invoice softwares out there that as a freelancer makes my job super easy, because I plug and play with the different forms that they have. Every form, every month that I send it to a client, it looks the same. They, after a few months, they notice the form. They know exactly what it is. It's what they expect. And I do have payment details on those forms.
Yeah, so, you can find templates in Word, Google Docs, just Google, invoice.
Yeah, I think I use one called, I think it's called Invoice Home. Yeah. And it's like $4.99 a month.
And if you have like Stripe or other services that you use.
PayPal has some good services.
There you go. So yeah, big one. Setting expectations around payment.
It's funny that we almost missed that one.
I'm serious when I say if a client is non-responsive on payment, stop
working. Yeah, 100%.
Because you might never get that payment if they're not responding to you, if they're not going to pay. But have the conversation. Bring it up and say, hey, you might have missed it. Just a reminder, and then call out in your proposal that you can say, hey, just a reminder, this is due by this date. If not, I'm going to stop work until payment is made.
Yeah.
And that will usually it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? Right. If you're the one who's reminding them that they owe you, and you're helping their business with whatever work that you're doing for them, that's a pretty important
100%. Yeah. So yeah. If you're not doing a good job and they are not paying you anymore, you'll find out that too.
So, that's why you set the expectations from the beginning so that everybody knows what to expect.
Right.
And you can say, hey, based on the expectations that we set in this proposal, the contract that we signed, what have I not met?
Yeah.
And if they say, hey, you didn't meet this. Oh, okay. Well, hey, you got me there. I will make sure to correct that. Here we go, get set up. And then once we have that done, make payment.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to end.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Please like and subscribe and download us on all your...
wherever you get your podcasts.
Podcast platforms. Check us out on YouTube. And we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah.
All right.